Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Steph, and I recently got back from a trip to Bali. It was very exciting. It's the farthest I've ever traveled before, and I got to go with a group of fellow watercolor artists. So it was really great to be able to paint with other people. Some of them I've traveled with before, and others were new friends that I made. So it was a really fun trip, very exciting. We got to see a lot of cool sights around the island of Bali. And one of the places we went was a monkey forest. And it was really cool to see all the monkeys. They were very peaceful, they were not aggressive like we've seen in some of the reels and videos. Uh, and it was really beautiful there. There was a lot of greenery. There was a very old temple that was there, I think from like the 15th or 16th century. And so that's what we're going to be painting today. The sunlight was streaming through the trees, and it was just so pretty the way the sun was coming through, the sunlight was coming through the leaves. And so that's what we're going to paint today in watercolor. We're also going to branch out a little bit and paint a bridge. That's not something I normally paint. So we're going to take a chance here. We're going to keep it very loose. We're not going to go for major details here. So grab your paints and come join me. Okay, let's put the picture up. We'll take a look at it. You can see the sun and the sun rays streaming through there. You can see that bright green, the leaves from the trees, and that bridge that I mentioned. And I'll also put a link to the picture down below. Of course, we're going to start with some wet paper. I sprayed it with some water, but you could also use a brush to swipe the water, which I'll also do here. And I'm going to start with the sun. I want to capture that glow, so I'm using a very bright yellow. And then I'm going to start putting in the green. This is a very bright green. I'll put the names of all the paints that I'm using down below in the description, but feel free to use whatever you have. If there's a green that you love, go ahead and get that out and you can use that. I wanted to start with the lightest green that I could to really show the sunlight. One tip I've learned when I'm trying to paint the sun without it looking like a big yellow circle is to take a little bit of tissue and dab it in the center it'll bring back the white of the paper, and it really brings out that brightness. I'm using the same green here, but a little bit darker value to give it a little bit of depth. I really, really loved this green color, so I used it for the entire painting for, well, for the trees. I did not use a different green. I just used it in different concentrations with more or less water depending on how bright I wanted it to look. And I'm going to dry this first layer before we move on to the next. We're going to do the bridge next. I am mixing a very dark brown with a little bit of a dark blue. It's almost black, but not quite. It has a little bit of nuance to it, which I really like, rather than using a straight black paint. Sorry, we're actually going to be doing the tree branches now, not the bridge, but I do use the same color for the bridge. To get the appearance of these hanging leaves and branches, I used a fairly dry brush and a very light touch on the paper. And you'll notice as I paint around the sun, I'm using an even lighter touch and very fine lines to really give that appearance of the sun shining through. Now I'm going to repeat that process with darker value paint. It's the same color mix that I described before, but I'm just using a darker value and an even drier brush to get more texture. Okay, now we're starting with a bridge with a very dark value, dark brown and dark blue. Again, the same mix as those tree branches, just much, much darker. And you'll see here, compared to the photo, I am not doing a lot of detail. That is not something I do, so I am keeping it very loose and abstract. You can tell those are sculptures, but you can't tell what they're sculptures of. And that's the way I wanted it. I knew there was no way I could get all of that detail in there. So you can do as much or as little detail as you like here. And that's it. We're all finished. As always, I'm going to use my heat tool to soften the adhesive on the tape so I don't rip the paper. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll probably be doing more paintings inspired by my trip to Bali, so stay tuned in the coming weeks, and thank you so much for joining me. See you next time.